I'm 82, and so I was born in 1931, so in the middle of the Great Depression, things were very different in this country. There was a lot of concern about government helping out people, and Roosevelt was president, so I grew up in a family that had a strong sense of community and collaboration. People were very involved in sharing farm equipment. The government and the New Deal was very much involved in setting up programs like Social Security, farm credit, because farmers need to borrow money to plant the next season's food. So it was very oriented toward helping people out, and not at all, not very much at all, committed to knocking down government and, generally having an anti-government perspective. I think that those were contrasting times with current times, where half the country, or maybe less actually, believes that the rest of us are moochers, and we ought to not be swilling at the government trough. I think the country as a whole is very torn on the idea of how much you're supposed to be doing, within the community for kids growing up well. Shepard Kellum, and my position is as Professor Emeritus at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Emeritus means I'm more or less retired. Ordinarily, I would have been coming in 6 or 7 days a week. Things tend to be isolated from each other in our country. Agencies are isolated from each other. Communities tend to be competitive, or we got reds and blues. We got all kinds of reasons why we can stay divided and be piecemeal. And I'm not particularly enthralled by the way we collectively are dealing with the world at large. We've been at war now since the Second World War, almost continually. I think that's crazy. Do some teaching. I work with other younger people in the department. Work also as a consultant to colleagues in different parts of the country. Mainly what I'm concerned with these days is implementation science. It has to do with how you move tested prevention programs into practice in communities.
Good morning. We're going to interrupt programming. We've been telling you this morning there has been a shooting at a school in Newtown. This is the Sandy Hook Elementary School. Let's take a look.
If you wanted to prevent Newtown or violent behavior in poor neighborhoods, which is ongoing and constant, you look for what happens to young kids, and that alters their socializing and feeling good about themselves and not being violent. We've been working to socialize kids to the role of students as they enter elementary schools. Having some schools and some kids get the new program, others getting the usual program, comparing them over time.
Thank you very much for those fingers in the air, ladies and gentlemen. So that signals our next good behavior game. I'm looking for some super quiet hands in the air. What would a spleen look like as we're working through our writing packet, ladies and gentlemen?
Talking to your neighbors. Saying shh to your friend.
Saying shh to your friend would be a spleen. I need one more spleen. Mr. Boyma. Loud and proud, please. Did you just say sneaking to the teacher's desk and taking candy out of it? Yeah, that would definitely be a spleen, and probably owe me some recess too. Taking my desk candy.
The good behavior game is a method of classroom behavior management. 3 teams in a first grade classroom, say, And those teams are mixed with boys and girls, half boys, half girls, and also mixed with behavior, for behavior. So the teams are made up of some kids who are having trouble behaving, attending, paying attention, and behaving without physical aggression, or not being too withdrawn, being too shy. And so the social adaptational status is a target of getting kids to improve in how they're integrated in classrooms. And the teams are rewarded for each kid's behavior. So the game is played, let's say in the beginning of first grade, 3 times a week, very meticulously. The teacher has a clock and she, says, okay, we're going to play the game. Typically at times when there's not a lot of group instruction, but when the kids are doing seat work and so on. So she says, now we're going to play the game, and during that time, if Charlie acts up, Charlie's team is not rewarded. Whereas if all the kids are behaving nicely as students, the teams are rewarded. So it's group contingent in the sense that the group is rewarded for Charlie's behavior. Well, turns out the kids have a lot of interest in Charlie. Working with communities in partnership with school boards and parents. For kids who enter first grade, following those cohorts over time, or graduates from high school, following them over time, and looking at the early risk and preventative conditions in the kid or in the environment that promote healthy development. Whether you're depressed, anxious, have thinking disorders, whatever is going on in your head is psychological inside, So there's an interaction between these two. How you're feeling depends to some extent on how well you're succeeding. And how you're succeeding depends to some extent on how you're feeling. You see stages of life across the top, and the social fields that each stage of life is involved in. Each of these cuts across. So you see the natural raters who rate how well you're doing in each of these social fields, and how well you're doing earlier influences how well you're likely to do later. 1975, University of Chicago. This is a book that we wrote on our work in Woodlawn, and the first interventions that we were involved in doing in first grade classrooms. Yeah, that's a photograph of our team. Circles is a kind of family combination we found. There were, in 1966, we were doing these studies, there were, let's see, how many were there? I'm trying to think. Well, first of all, I think golf is boring. That's not to say everybody thinks that, but if I'm going to watch something, I'd rather watch the Ravens. No, I have been lucky. I'm 82. I've been working in a field all my life. I've had nothing but positive excitement over what I do. And so why would I quit? I don't get paid practically anything anymore, but I keep coming in here because I want to help young people. We're now working on how to move these many programs that have been tested, prevention programs, how to move them into practice, how to move them into communities. So I want to be part of that.
Our spleen count, we have table 1, no spleens. Very nicely done. Table 2, we have 1 spleen. Not too shabby. Table 3, we have 4 spleens. I am pretty sure that you guys will do better next time. Drum solos. This is your moment to rock. 12 seconds. Here we go. That is the end of our game, ladies and gentlemen.